Hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar uh, with CADLink in conjunction with QBuild and TriMin and also Infor. My name is Sasar Sandal. I'm the presenter for today's session. I am one of the sales engineers here at QBuild, and today we have a session scheduled in conjunction with QBuild, TriMin, and also Infor to discuss um, how you can bridge that gap between your engineering software, so your CAD, PDM, PLM system, and your ERP, Infor XA. And what are the benefits of that, why it's important, and how you can achieve that. So, firstly, introduction to myself. As I mentioned, my name's Sasara Sandal. I'm one of the sales engineers here at QBuild Software, and I'm also the partner manager for our XA, QBuild's XA partnership within Infor and also TriMin Systems. I've been with QBuild for a little under 3 years now, and prior to this, I have been in the manufacturing world, specifically automotive and HVAC. So I'm very familiar with some of the processes and struggles that manufacturers such as yourselves go through, and how those processes can be improved. So firstly, quick agenda of what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to first start off with the introduction to QBuild, who we are, what we do as a company. Then we'll talk about why CADLink and why CAD to ERP integration is important. We'll also touch a bit upon the partnership between Infor, TriMin, and QBuild, and also go through a live demonstration of the solution CADLink, so the CAD to ERP solution. Talk about some of the benefits, the ROI of it, and then open up the floor for any questions or unanswered questions towards the end. As we go through this webinar, if you do have any questions at all, there is a chat box on the webinar panel. So if you do have any questions, just feel free to type it into the chat, and I will get to it as soon as I can, if not towards the end of the demonstration. Any questions that are unable to be answered during today's session, I will be following up, along with TriMin Systems, will be following up afterwards via email to answer those questions. So firstly, quick introduction to QBuild. Who are we? What do we do? So QBuild, we're a software development company. We focus on engineering software and production software integration to ERP. So really focusing on connecting systems and departments across the company and bridging those gaps between those systems to allow for more automation, more time given back to your team's day, and less time spent on tedious tasks such as manual data entry and worrying about things like accuracy of data. So you can see on screen here some of our solutions that we do provide, and all of these solutions really focus on that engineering software, production software to ERP integration that I was talking about. And all of these solutions, again, really focus on connecting the departments and automating your processes. Today we'll be speaking mainly about CADLink, but I will touch upon some of these other solutions here. And if you are interested in any of these solutions that are shown on screen, feel free to reach out to me or check out our website for more info. So QBuild, we've been doing this for over 2 decades now. Our QBuild was founded by our founder back in 2002. He had created a simple connecting software between AutoCAD and his ERP at the time, and that's how CADLink and QBuild was born. And over those 2 decades, we've garnered a lot of partnerships and experience, with over 10 years of partnership with Infor alone, and over 50 partnerships and integrations between CAD, PDM, PLM, and nesting softwares. And currently we have over 450 Infor customers that are using our QBuild solutions like CADLink. And we are partnered with Infor and also TriMin, and we're actually the only certified supported CAD integrator for the Infor ERPs, including XA. So we're sold and supported by Infor and also the channel partners like TriMin, and we've been integrating, as I mentioned, with Infor solutions like XA for over a decade now. And on the CAD side and the engineering software side, we also have a lot of partnerships and integrations that we've developed and garnered over the years. And you can see some of our major partnerships on screen here. So you can really see all those major CAD and engineering softwares that you're probably familiar with and used to seeing. So quick question, and I will be throwing up a poll on everyone's screen here in a moment. Just want to get an idea of what CAD systems or engineering systems that you're currently using, and if you see that engineering system in our partnership shown on screen here. So I'm just going to quickly launch that poll, and you should see a poll on your screen here. I'll give it about a minute for some of the answers to roll in, and then we'll discuss some of the results and continue on here. Okay. So I see right now about half of, or about 40% are using SOLIDWORKS or SOLIDWORKS PDM. Other 40% are using a PLM system of sorts, and the remaining is another system. So we'll give it a few more seconds here. Okay, so looks like I'm going to close that poll there. And looks like, as I mentioned, about 40% using SOLIDWORKS, 40% PLM system, and 14% other. I'm surprised no one is using Inventor and a Volt system. That's also a pretty major system, but we are integrating with SOLIDWORKS, SOLIDWORKS PDM, and all of those major PLM systems. And if you do, I do want to mention that what's shown on screen here is only a snippet of all of our integrations. As I mentioned, we have over 50 of them. So if you don't see your engineering system here, it's likely available or listed on our website. So go to our website to see a full integration list for that information. So it's great to hear that pretty much all of you are using a system covered here. To talk a little bit about some of our other solutions that I was showing on screen there. So CADLink is our CAD to ERP integration solution that I was mentioning, but we do also focus on other integration solutions. So one of our other flagship products is NestLink. And NestLink is similar to CADLink, where it's a bidirectional integration between your nesting software and your Infor XA jobs. So if you do any sort of laser cutting or sheet metal fabrication and you use a nesting software, you'll know that you need to integrate that nesting software information with the ERP as well, similar to how you would do with CAD to ERP integration. So NestLink provides that solution for you with the backend process that connects the two systems and creates transactions in real time automatically, saving you and your team a lot of time automating those processes and ensuring data accuracy. Another one of our flagship products is ECX Manager. So ECX Manager is our centralized engineering change management process or solution. It helps you automate, simplify, and integrate your engineering change processes with direct integration to Infor XA. So you can eliminate some of that duplicate data entry and integrate that overall workflow process with not only your ERP, but also your CAD system as well. So if you're interested in either of those solutions, again, feel free to reach out to me or check out our website for more info. But let's talk about CADLink, our CAD to ERP integration solution. Why is CAD to ERP integration important, and why are solutions like CADLink important to our processes as manufacturers? So firstly, let's take a quick look at the overall BOM or engineering to ERP process. So on one side we have our engineers or engineering department. Those are really the CAD designers, people working with the drawings and the models. They provide a lot of the part details, create the bills of materials, and really they're the ones who have that foundation of knowledge of how the products are built and how the custom orders should be, designed. So that's one end of the business. And on the other end, on the ERP side with XA, we have our, XA users who are using XA for production planning. Maybe it's the procurement team who's using it for purchasing and procuring materials and parts for manufacturing, or it's manufacturing engineers, using the job systems to schedule jobs and cost their jobs as well. So both sides play a very important part in, the functioning of our company and our production overall. But these two systems, without that integration, those parts and BOMs and overall that information, there's a big disconnect between the two systems. And because of that, we run into a lot of, prospects and customers who tell us about they don't get, up-to-date information as soon as they need to. There's a lot of data discrepancies between the two systems because of that lack of disconnect or the lack of connection between these two systems. And really for an ERP like XA to perform as intended, especially for a manufacturing company, accurate CAD data is required. CAD data and accuracy of that data is really the cornerstone of that ERP, and your ERP will only function as well as or as good as your data is in it. So it's important that we have that connection there to ensure that we have, accurate data, and we're actually providing the accurate data so our ERP can be using it and our teams can be using it as intended. Oops. So, don't take it from my word. We hear a lot of these challenges from prospects and customers that come to us that are not using a integration solution like CADLink currently. And some of the common challenges that we hear from manufacturers are number one, product development. So without that that integration or connection between ERP and engineering, there's a lot of suffering in the product development because there's longer lead times to get to market. So, due to that lack of connection, it's harder to get information and up-to-date information across, and overall leads to delayed notifications across departments, which can extend our lead times. Next is product quality. Again, due to that lack of connection, there's a lot of design intent that's lost in translation. So, engineering may design a BOM one way and put it into the engineering system or CAD system, and production sees it another way. And because of that, there's that lack of connection, and the design intent is lost, and it leads to production areas where you have kind of wrong build situations where you have to redo builds or redo parts, and again, leading to longer lead times. And next we have engineering resources. So a really big challenge that we see is a lot of time the manufacturers don't have the engineering resources to expend on these non-value activities such as BOM entry processes from engineering into XA. So by having your engineers focus on manual work such as BOM entry, you're really reducing their project and design capacity on focusing on actual building up products and designing for customer orders, and rather than having them manually enter data by looking at two screens. And lastly, another big issue we see is data management. With manual data entry and a manual BOM entry process, we see a lot of complaints about double and triple data entry. So, engineering puts in one thing and maybe someone else from production puts the same thing in again because they didn't realize that engineering had put it in. So there's a lot of downstream confusion that can come about due to this inaccurate data. So this is another big challenge that we see in manufacturers that don't have this integration or are still doing manual BOM entry processes. So I have another poll here as well. I want to get an idea of what sort of challenges do you run into based on what we discuss here today. Do you run into any of these challenges here? And if so, what is the most common challenge that you face today at your company? So you should be seeing that poll again, similar to the previous one on your screen. Okay, a lot of data management issues coming in, few engineering resource challenges, and a couple of the product challenges as well. We'll give it a few more seconds here. All right. So I'm going to close this poll. Oh, looks like a few more votes coming in. Give it a couple more seconds, excuse me. All right. So it looks like majority of the audience here actually struggles with data management issues. So double, triple data entry, inaccurate data, or data discrepancies, which is definitely a very common challenge we see. I would say the most common challenges we see are data management and engineering resources being taken up. So, and second, second of the most votes actually went to engineering resources. So it seems like a lot of you are struggling with having taking some of this work away from your engineering department and offloading it off of them. And we have a few product development issues as well, so longer lead time and wrong build situations. All right, so let's talk about some of the alternatives. So instead of using an automated solution like CADLink for integration, what are some of the alternatives that we see manufacturers using or customers using? So there's really two main alternatives that we see. Number one is brute force, so just manually entering that data in, having your engineering department sit behind two screens and copy the data manually. The next is blind push, so this is kind of a two-step import export process with maybe a CSV file or an XML file, something of that sort. So they both kind of achieve in a similar fashion the same end result, which is getting the BOM and items into XA, but they have their own sets of challenges and issues that make this whole process a lot more inefficient. So starting with brute force, the number one issue with brute forcing or manually entering your data in, as we saw with some the previous poll, is it's highly error prone. You're going to see a lot of areas where you have data inaccuracies, double, triple data entries. Someone's entering maybe an extra zero for a quantity, which can really have detrimental impacts downstream, even though it's a very small issue or what seems like a small issue at that time. So, if you put in an extra zero for some steel sheets and you order 100 steel sheets instead of 10, now you have, 90 more steel sheets than you need, and you've kind of wasted a bit of your resources, which could have gone elsewhere. So that risk of human error is really, really prevalent in brute forcing and manually entering that data in. Oh, wrong way. And the other challenge with brute forcing your data in is very time consuming. So especially if you have larger bills of materials or you're creating a lot of new items every day, maybe you're a custom manufacturer or engineer to order manufacturer, and because of that you have to constantly update your bills of materials or update your parts, which really add up. Even if it's a few parts per day, if you're doing a few parts per day, that's multiple parts per week and a lot of time spent on manual data entry per week or per month. So this is really time that we shouldn't be, especially in today's day and age, be expending on things such as manual data entry when these processes can be easily automated. Sorry, I keep going backwards here. And the last challenge with brute forcing and manually entering data in is just plain boring. No one really wants to be doing manual data entry, especially if you're an engineer. If you talk to engineers or if you are an engineer, you don't want to be spending your time on things like manual data entry. You want to be spending it on things that actually stimulate your work and what you'd like to do. So actually designing new products, helping customers out, and bringing in and generating revenue for you and your company. So especially when things become boring and tedious, people tend to make more mistakes as well. So if something's very tedious for them, they tend to pay less attention, be less thorough with things because they want to just get through it and get work on things that they actually want to do. So we want to take that away, that aspect, the boring aspect, away from our engineers and away from our departments and team overall. Next is blind push. So that's another alternative, which is, so for example, you export your CAD BOM from SOLIDWORKS, for example, into an Excel file, and then someone looks over that Excel file, maybe modifies it a little bit, and then imports it into XA. So this is slightly faster than brute forcing, although it still has its own set of challenges and issues that we commonly hear customers say. Number one, it requires a lot of data massaging because it's called blind push because you're blindly exporting and importing that data. So when you export that data, you still have someone to go in there and make sure everything looks right before committing it into or importing it into XA. And even once you import it into XA, a lot of this data is not validated. So someone has to go back into XA and look over the bills of materials and the items that were just created to make sure that everything looks good, which is essentially doing the same steps over again. So you're really adding more time to that whole process. Next, there's no bidirectional connection. So you're able to import your data into XA, but you're not able to take some of your XA data and update it in your engineering system, so your CAD, PLM, or PDM system. And that causes issues a lot of issues with data discrepancies where your XA system says one thing, but your engineering softwares and PLM say another thing, and it causes downstream confusion and wrong bill situations, wrong quantities being ordered, etc. And lastly, it's often reliant on a single person. Most of the time we hear it's IT that's maintaining and controlling the blind push process. And this presents a lot of issues because they're the only ones with that knowledge typically. And if they go on vacation or something breaks and they're not there to fix it, it really bottlenecks that whole process and causes unnecessary delays and even more longer lead times when it could be easily mitigated by automating this whole process. So you can start to see some of the issues that these alternatives face. So even though these alternatives may seem appealing at first, once you start to use them and do these the actual work for some of these alternatives, you start to realize a lot of these issues that we're discussing here today. So with all that being said, what's the solution to this? The solution is really CADLink, or an automated solution or integration solution like CADLink, mainly because it's going to tackle some of these pain points of these alternative solutions that we were just discussing. So for manual data entry, that human error and it not being time and resource effective, that's going to be mitigated because you're automating that process. So you're not really spending as much time and resource on that whole BOM entry process, and you're eliminating that risk of human error by removing a large portion of that human aspect from that process as well. And next, the import-export method or the blind push. An automated solution like CADLink will have that data validation built in, and it also is bidirectional, which the blind push did not have. So these are all pain points and challenges that solutions like CADLink really aim to resolve and make your process even better and more efficient. So with these pain points, what does that really mean? It means with these alternatives, you have slower engineering, longer lead times, wrong bill situations, wrong inventory levels, lot of shop floor errors and scrap, and overall frustration in the company, and especially engineering and production. So let's talk a bit about the direct solution to this, CADLink. So what is CADLink, first of all? As I mentioned, it's a CAD to ERP integration solution. So when I say CAD to ERP, that CAD terminology really encompasses, CAD, PDM, and your PLM system. So CADLink is able to connect or integrate with all three of those systems. So that's why refer to it as engineering software. But CADLink will plug right into your engineering software's CAD data or your model, read that model and that data that you have in there, and then also check your Infor XA system. So check if those specific parts and assemblies that you're using in your CAD data, if they already exist, and if there's any available information in XA with that. Once it's grabbed those two sets of data, it will do a live data comparison between both systems information. So at that specific point in time, it'll do a live data comparison. You can see that live data comparison in an interface, validate that data, make any changes you like, and then commit those changes not only to XA, but also back into your engineering system as well to make sure that both systems are in sync going forward. So that is a high-level overview into CADLink. I'm sure that you're curious to see what it actually looks like in action. So today I do have a live demonstration prepared to show you what this would look like in your process and how CADLink is designed to function and automate this process for you. So I'm going to just freeze my screen here for a second and pull up the demonstration. So just give me 1 second here. All right, so you should be seeing SOLIDWORKS opened up here. So I have SOLIDWORKS up and a demo model open up here as well. And the scenario here is, I'm a design engineer at XYZ company. And let's say a customer came over and requested a new design or an updated revision for this 4-digit printhead, and based on that customer's request, I've updated the model here in SOLIDWORKS. So I've added some additional heating cartridges to make the heating a bit better for this 4-digit printhead. And now that I've updated my model in SOLIDWORKS or in my engineering system, I now need to update that in XA as well. So my production and procurement and front office all have the most up-to-date model and know what needs to go into it to actually manufacture the new revision. So instead of doing that manually, I'm going to have CADLink, actually take care of that updating for me. So I don't have to look at my SOLIDWORKS screen and XA and manually enter that data, or I don't have to export this into Excel and then look over that and import it into XA. It's going to be a lot more automated here. And to launch CADLink, I don't actually have to leave my engineering system at all. I can simply go into the add-in here and launch CADLink directly from my engineering system. So I don't ever have to leave that. And now you can see CADLink is actually grabbing my data from my SOLIDWORKS model or my CAD model and checking if those parts and items already exist in my XA environment and doing a live demonstration live comparison between those two sets of data. Once it's finished making that live data comparison, it'll bring up the interface that you see here. And at this point, we haven't committed any changes yet into XA. This is kind of that in-between step where I, as the user, have that opportunity to verify all this data and validate the data before actually committing these changes. So you'll notice a few main things about this interface. Firstly is the BOM grid here. That's going to be where you're going to be spending a majority of your work to review the data and see what the bill of material actually looks like. And then you also have the side panel here as well, which has some additional information and features such as BOM changes or summary of BOM changes and also data validation as well. So let's go through the interface here. Firstly, starting with the BOM grid, you can notice on the bill of material structure, my CADLink is maintaining my parent-child relationships based on what I had in my SOLIDWORKS model and also what I had in XA. You'll also notice that there's a lot of colored highlights going on in this interface here. And those colored highlights are actually the result of that live data comparison CADLink has made between my XA and CAD data. So each of these result a different each of these represent a different result of that live data comparison. And let's go with each of these together, what each of these actually. Sorry, my headset died there for a second. But let's go through what each of these colored highlights mean. And firstly, these colored highlights are really there to give me as the user and engineer an understanding or a representation of what is going on between my two systems at a quick glance. So just by looking at this bill of material and these colored highlights, I'm able to determine and decipher, which items are new in XA, where the field level discrepancies are, and really what parts and items require my attention. So I don't have to sift through all this information and check it all one by one. So starting from the top, you'll notice I have a few white highlighted items here. Throughout this bill of material, and white highlighted items is CADLink telling you, hey, I found this part number or item number in your CAD data, and I found this item number also exists in your XA system as well. So this item already exists in XA, and because of that, when I go to hit save, CADLink will be making no changes to these items because the data is already in sync between the two systems, and that's what we are looking for. Moving further down, you'll notice I have quite a few green highlighted items here. About, I would say half or more than half of this bill of material is highlighted green. And green highlighted items are items that were found in my SolidWorks model or my CAD data, but doesn't exist in my XA system yet. So these are new items that don't exist in XA yet. They may be new items I just added into this new revision that the customer ordered. And because of that, they don't exist in XA yet. And I need to add them and create them in XA to add it to this bill of material. So instead of manually creating each of these items, maybe taking 20 minutes to 60 minutes to create all of these items and add it to the BOM with the operations and everything. It's now I can go ahead and hit save here in CADLink, and CADLink will automatically create all of these new items for me in XA based on what I have in my CAD data. So instead of taking 20 to 60 minutes to create all of these manually or using the import-export process, I can have CADLink automatically create these for me within a matter of seconds. So I'm cutting down that time taken from maybe an hour every day to just matter of seconds or minutes per day. So I'm already saving over 8 hours per week, for example. So you can start to see how much time CADLink will save you and how much of this process it's really automating for you. Next, we also have these yellow highlighted fields, whether that's on my revision, my description, or my unit quantity, or any of my other fields here. These are field level discrepancies CADLink has detected between my my CAD data and my XA data. So let's take this description, for example. CADLink is telling me that this description is different in XA versus what I have in CAD. I can right click on it to see what the discrepancy is. And here you can see in my SolidWorks model, I have this print head spring bracket, but in XA, I have something completely different for the description. It's called a res C array ohm. So it looks like a resistor of some sort. And I can see what I'm currently using in CADLink. And I can pick and choose which description I would like to use. So currently I'm using my XA one, but it's not actually a resistor I'm using here. The print head spring bracket is the most accurate description, so I want to be using that. I can simply select it in the interface, and CADLink will reflect that in the interface as shown here. Alternatively, if I feel that none of these descriptions actually suit what this item is, I can go ahead and modify this description by typing into the cell here, or type my own brand new description directly through CADLink like so. And now when I go to hit save, CADLink will update this new description or this new updated field, discrepant field in XA, and I also have the ability to write this back to my CAD system as well. So that's that advantage of having that bidirectional connection. I can make sure that both systems are in sync going forward all the time. So anytime I make a change in one system, I can actually have CADLink automatically push that back to the other system for me, and I don't have to worry about keeping those two systems in sync and any of the downstream confusion that it may bring about. So similarly, I can also right-click to see what the discrepancies are on any of these other yellow highlighted fields. Specifically with the quantity as well, I can do that here, as you can see. But if I go and try and click on a different quantity, specifically with the quantity itself, you'll see CADLink is not actually updating that quantity in the interface, and that's because the quantity is always driven by your CAD documents and your CAD model. So if I want to update the quantity for this part or assembly, for example, I have to go back into my CAD model and CAD data, update the quantity there by physically modeling the parts, and then relaunch CADLink to see that updated quantity. This is to ensure engineering best practices, and again, making sure that what we're actually pushing to XA is what we've actually designed or what our engineering team has designed as well. Next, I also have, you'll notice these gray highlighted parts, and these gray highlighted parts are parts that were not found in my SolidWorks or my CAD data, but were found in my XA bill of material for this specific assembly. So you may run into gray highlight parts due to a revision change. For example, like in this scenario where, in this new revision, these previous parts are now obsoleted and they're no longer needed, maybe replaced by some new parts that we're using. So since these parts are no longer needed and they're not existing in our CAD model anymore, when I go to hit save, CADLink will actually remove these parts from my XA bill of material to make sure what I have in XA is representative of what my engineers have actually modeled. Now, CADLink will only remove these items from that specific assembly and bill of material. CADLink will never delete any item records from your XA item master. It's just removing it from that one specific BOM. But let's say, for example, I didn't want to remove some of these parts or items. Some of these items are added in by production or by my operations team for something for production use, and I want to keep it in there so they still have it there. I can convert it to what CADLink calls a manual part. And by converting it to a manual part, you'll see that color highlighting change now to a blue color highlight, indicating it's now a manual part. So now when I go to hit save, CADLink won't be removing this item from my XA bill of material, even though it doesn't exist in my CAD data or CAD model. And when I go to relaunch CADLink or someone else uses CADLink on the same assembly, CADLink will remember that someone had previously set this up as a manual part or convert it to a manual part and keep it as such until I, as the user, go ahead and remove it or remove that designation. Now, the manual part feature can also be used to add in parts to your XA bill of material without having to model it in your CAD system. So, good example of when you may want to use that is for consumable items, for example. Think of hardware, nuts, bolts, paint, glue, packaging, manuals, anything really that you wouldn't necessarily model in your CAD system, but you do need an XA for production or purchasing reasons. So let's say, for this bill of material, I didn't model any bolts, but I do need them in my XA bill of material, for production. I can go ahead and add those bolts directly through CADLink here. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm just going to add it as another level or child of this. As you can see, CADLink is now added in a new empty row for me to add that part. And here I can search my entire XA item master for the part I'd like to add. Because of that direct integration with XA, CADLink is able to grab the whole entire item master of all my XA items, and I'm able to use those items in CADLink as well. So, I'm looking for some bolts. Let's search for some bolts, and you can see CADLink showing me all of my bolt items in XA, and I can select the one I want to use. And CADLink will auto-populate the rest of the information based on what I have in XA. And let's say I need maybe 10 of these bolts for this assembly. And now just like that, I have these bolts added in to my XA bill of material without having to model it in my CAD system. So, what may have taken me, 10, 15 minutes is now only taking a matter of seconds. Again, streamlining the entire process and making it a lot more efficient. Scrolling to the right, you'll notice I have some additional fields and columns here. So as you know, when you create new items in XA or in an ERP, there's a lot more information that goes into it that wouldn't be specified or typically isn't specified on the engineering side. So, information such as unit of measure or part type, part class, warehouse information, that's all necessary and important information for an ERP like XA to function. So CADLink is also handling those that important data as well, and I'm able to set up that data through the interface here. So as you can see, I have all of this. So for the existing items, CADLink is pulling it from my XA item master, what I already have set in XA. For some of these new items, I can either configure them based on some defaults that I have set up, I can read them directly from my CAD model as well, or I can treat it on a case-by-case basis and adjust it through the interface here. So, simply like so, I can go through the interface and modify it like this, or automate it even further by reading it directly from my CAD model or from the default values. All these dropdowns, by the way, that you're seeing in CADLink, they're coming directly from my XA environment. So these, these unit of measures, for example, these are all coming directly from XA. It's not a separate list that I'm maintaining. As soon as I add in a new unit of measure in XA, CADLink will pick up on that and display that in here as well. And lastly, scrolling further to the right, I have a separate section specifically dedicated to handling raw materials. So if you are manufacturing items and parts in-house from raw material, CADLink does also handle that information. I can either add in the raw material information by reading it from the CAD model. If I already had it in the CAD model, I can pick it up from there. Or I can go by a case-by-case basis and add it through the interface as well. So maybe this part needs to be, it's manufactured by us in-house, and it needs to be manufactured from a steel sheet. So I can search for all the steel that I have, and I can see the steel sheet results and add in the material that way. And maybe I need just one of these. So now I also have raw material added in within a matter of seconds. So that's the BOM grid. Oh, and by the way, these this data that you're seeing here are these columns. These are the columns that I have set up, as standard for the demo. If you are looking to have, additional information or transfer, map different information or other fields, we definitely can add those in for you as well. Let's talk quickly on the side panel here, because there are some useful features that you can use. One of them is the operations. So this is an add-on module that we offer, and this actually allows you to handle routings and work centers directly through CADLink. So, let's say I needed to assign work centers and routings to some of these new subassemblies that I'm creating. I can simply do that through the CADLink interface, and I'm going to show you how right now. And here I'm selecting the subassembly I want to assign the operations to. And I can either load them in from a template, but for today, I'm just going to add in, operations here. And again, CADLink is pulling all of these work centers or operations directly from what I have set up in XA. So these are not a separate list that I'm maintaining. It's all coming directly from my XA environment. So now I have those two operations or work centers set up, and I can go ahead and relate them to the children components simply like so. So now I have my operations and routings also assigned for this new subassembly that I'm creating, further streamlining this process and making it a lot more efficient and less time consuming. Next, we have the BOM changes tab. So the BOM changes is essentially a summary report of all the changes CADLink will be making in XA when I go to hit the save button. So you can see some of the notes of what actions it'll be taking. I can see some of the quantity and operation information as well. And it'll only show parts that actually have updates happening to them. So if I have very large bills of materials and I need to easily navigate through the parts that actually require my attention, I can use this BOM changes tab to help with that, because if I double click on the part number on here, you'll notice it will highlight it in the BOM grid. And I can export this BOM changes tab along with the BOM grid itself to an Excel or PDF. So some of our customers will export this BOM changes and attach it to an ECN process of some sort, or use it to notify other departments of changes that are happening. Next is the CAD data tab. This is a read-only tab. It displays your CAD system or engineering systems properties. So in my case, it's displaying my SOLIDWORKS properties. It's there so I can easily cross-reference the data without having to switch back and forth. And lastly, the most important tab is the messages. So CADLink will always validate your data against your XA rules and requirements. So a common issue with some of the alternatives was that it doesn't have data validation. CADLink does have that data validation, and it does it automatically for you. So as I was going through this data and setting it up, CADLink is always checking if all this data is valid. And I can see I do have one message here saying that one of my data or my items is not valid. If I do have any messages here in the messages tab, you'll notice CADLink does disable and gray out my save button, preventing the user from saving until we resolve this data validation issue. So it says that one of my part numbers or part descriptions is empty. I can double click on it to highlight the part that's causing the issue in the BOM grid. And let's go ahead and resolve the issue here. And you can see as I resolve the issue by typing in a description, my message is now resolved and my save button is re-enabled. But let's say I didn't know what the most accurate description was and I need to talk to another team member to get that information. I can actually use a save checkbox column to pick and choose which parts or items I want to include in the save. So by excluding this item from the save, we're working around this that message temporarily, and we're able to save the rest of the data. So it's a really great way to save longer lead time items or just partial BOMs into XA as well. So that brings me to the end of the demonstration. I hope this demonstration gave you some insight into how the CADLink process would look like, the workflow, and how it would automate your processes and help you save time and be more efficient. So now I'm going to hop back into the presentation here. So I'm going to quickly do that here. All right. So just to summarize some of the key features that we saw during that demonstration, we saw CADLink does have that direct link or direct integration with our XA system. So it opens the door for a lot of advantageous features that help streamline the process. Like searching on my item master for any items that I like to add, or automatically pulling in the values that I have set up for different fields like unit of measure, warehouse, etc. I'm able to push revision information directly from my CAD model into my XA database and ERP. And I'm also able to update those items and BOMs directly from my CAD systems as well. So I didn't actually have to ever leave my CAD system. It was all done directly through that and pulling in that CAD system's information and data as well. So with that in mind, what are the goals or the benefits of CADLink? There are two really main benefits of CADLink. Is number one, the reduction of cost. You're going to see a lot of reduction in cost by reducing those non-value added engineering activities, especially if you're having your engineers manually enter this data in right now. You're going to see a lot of reduction in cost and a lot of time savings on that aspect. and reduction in costs also due to more accurate data and less inaccurate data and data discrepancies, which can cause downstream confusion. You'll also see a huge improvement in your data accuracy overall, just due to the automation of the process and the lack of human involvement, or removing that human aspect from it, which can lead to reduction in scrap, improvement in purchasing accuracy, and elimination of wrong build situations, and also improvement on on-time shipments by lowering those lead times. But that's all great said and done. What is the actual value proposition of CADLink? So if we were to put a dollar value of it on it, what would it look like? So let's say, for example, I have an engineer spending 1 hour per day on BOM entry and part creation in XA, or item creation. If they're spending 1 hour per day manually right now, or with an import-export process, with the use of CADLink, that's going to, that whole process is going to be reduced down to just a couple minutes or a couple of seconds. So let's say 3 minutes per day now. And if we have an engineering team of 8, they're all doing BOM entry, so that's about 8 hours per day in total of BOM entry for the whole team. And with the use of CADLink, that's going to essentially save one body's worth of time in the engineering department. So looking at some numbers here really quickly, if we're doing manual data entry with 8 engineers with 1 BOM entry hour per day, that's over 2,000 hours per year just on BOM entry alone. So you can start to see how much time these small tedious processes actually take and how much it adds up to. And let's say there's, with the data inaccuracies and struggles that you currently have, you're maybe running into 1 scrap part per year, which is pretty, I would say, pretty low on the low side from my experience in manufacturing. And then you also have maybe 6 late shipments per year as well. And with the introduction of CADLink, you're again reducing that time to maybe over 2,000 hours per year to just a couple hours per year, and you're eliminating a lot of that shop floor confusion. So that's adding up to over $65,000 per year in total savings. So this is just a general example. If you're looking for something a bit more specific to your use case, I do have an ROI document that I can share with you. So if you're interested in that, feel free to reach out to your TriMin representative or myself after this, and I'll be happy to share that with you. So overall business impact, with CADLink, you're going to have cleaner data, less data entry, more time for engineering and production to focus on the actual work, which means a higher throughput of projects as well, and a better overhead ratio overall. It's great for me to say that CADLink is going to make your process this much better, but don't take my word for it. You can go check out our website and also our Google page as well for a bunch of reviews from our existing customers of how CADLink has helped them with their processes to make them more efficient, save time, and also money as well. There's some case studies available with some of these as well, so you can see an actual side-by-side data comparison of pre-CADLink versus post-CADLink. So if you're interested in those, go check out our website. But that brings me to the end of today's webinar. My contact information is shown on screen here today. But if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to your TriMin representatives as well, and they'll be able to help you out. So I know we only have a couple minutes here, but I do want to open up the floor for any questions that anyone may have had through this session. So again, you can enter any of your questions into the chat box below there. So I'll just quickly do a few questions here, and then we can wrap things up for today. Great question here. There's a question about warehouses. So if you're using multiple warehouses in your XA currently, and your assembly is being built in one or more of those warehouses or stored in one or more of those warehouses, will this work with CADLink, or how does that work with CADLink? So CADLink is able to create multiple warehouse records. So that's something that you can configure in the settings. If you are pushing to multiple warehouses, you can specify those, or you can have it show up in the interface as well as a separate column, and you can specify those 2 warehouses you want to push it to. And when you hit save, CADLink will create that warehouse record in warehouse A, for example, and warehouse B. So another question here, does CADLink work with PLM systems? Yes, it does work with PLM systems. I know that in the demonstration I showed SolidWorks, but regardless of if you're using a PDM, PLM, or a actual CAD design system, CADLink is able to integrate with any of those. And it would function the same way as I showed in today's demonstration if you are using a PLM system. All right, let's do one more question here. So a question about routings and work centers. Can this also be brought from the CAD side or from our PLM system if it's specified there? Yes, if you already have that data specified, whether that's the operations, the routings or work centers or any of the other data, if it's already specified in your engineering system, CADLink can definitely just plug right into that, read that data, and create those for you, create those routings and operations for you. That's definitely something we've done in the past and we can do for you as well. So I'll go through one last question here. Does it integrate with ECN processes? Yes and no. So CADLink out of the box, it doesn't directly integrate with the ECN process in XA if that's what you're looking for, but it is possible and we can do that. CADLink also is designed to work with our own engineering change management system, ECX Manager. So those 2 can also work in conjunction with each other to further streamline that process and make it a lot more controlled if you're looking for that engineering change control type of control. But if you are just looking to integrate with the XA ECN processes, it's definitely something we can do. We just need to scope out what works for you and what are your requirements. So thank you all again for your time today. I hope today's webinar was insightful and educational on how CAD to ERP integration can help you. I'll get to the last few remaining questions over email, but I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Sarah and I will also share this recording with anyone who would like to review it again. But thank you all, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Take care. Bye.